Now, for more analysis on the latest Brexit drama, I'm joined by Remi Piet. He's a research associate of the EY Center at the University of Miami. Good to see you again, Remi.
It's a pleasure, Rachel.
So with this latest rejection of Prime Minister May's deal and obviously multiple other proposals from MPs shot down before that, how will the remaining options affect the UK economy?
Well, there's a series of different options still on the table, whether the Parliament on Monday will be able to present another text or some kind of a consensus among different representatives in Congress that could include, being still part of the customs union, or they're not able to do so on Monday, and then actually Theresa May actually move forward with another vote on her own texts. Depending on this outcome will be, the impact on the economy, and the impact on the economy is actually very, very strong already. Directly after the vote of the Brexit in 2016, you had the pound that, just stumbled 15%. Last week again, and even today, we're seeing the value of the pound on the market, drastically decrease. So you see in terms of purchasing power for the British population, this has serious impact. More importantly, in the long run, a series of different investments from different companies have diverted away from the UK, understanding that the risks of a hard Brexit without a clear understanding of the rules of the game between the UK and the EU has actually led those investors to consider investing in France or Germany or other countries of the European Union to have a better terms of trade when it comes to exporting to the EU. And you're seeing a series of different companies. Airbus, for example, has confirmed again that it would actually have potentially to drastically reduce the production of part of the planes that are made in UK today,
right,
to make them in Germany or France, and that's just one of many companies now reconsidering their investment in the UK.
So then, Remi, as we look at some of the sectors, obviously a lot of them going to be impacted, which ones are going to see the most immediate economic impact, not just for London, but also Brussels, if it does become a no-deal Brexit?
So the key issue here is, there's a no-deal Brexit, you having the UK out of the common market, you're going to have to see a series of tariffs and duties on imports from the UK directly to the EU and the other way around also. There's clear consideration that potentially both countries, whether the UK or the EU, are not prepared for that scenario. For example, in terms of hiring the right customs officer, being able to make sure that the new rules in place are implemented in Dover in the UK side, or in Calais, for example, Zeebrugge in Belgium in the big harbors. This actually demands a long issue of different administrative processes on which neither the UK or the EU is, to be honest, completely in order right now to be able to implement just after, let's say, April 12th, if it was the case. So you're going to have a lot of red tape, a lot of delays, potentially big disruption in harbors and airports, and that's something that will happen just after the breakdown of the Brexit negotiation. That is actually the road that we're looking at in the near future.
Now, Remi, we saw that Donald Tusk said on Twitter that he's calling a European Council meeting on April 10th. Theresa May is expected to attend. What does this latest rejection, though, mean for the negotiating position of the EU?
So there's still a little bit of days between now and April 10. What Donald Tusk is trying to see is to make sure that the EU has potentially the last word on those potential negotiation and decision in the UK level. Depending on what will happen next week in Parliament, whether Theresa May is able to have a text move forward on the fourth vote, or if the actual Parliament members that have the upper hand right now, with potentially a series of motions being passed on Monday, that could include, for example, having a scenario of the UK exiting the European Union but staying within the customs union. That's the most likely scenario. When we looked at the 8 motions that were rejected last week, this was the motion that actually gathered the most vote, and then potentially would be the one that moved forward. Then you will have a scenario that will be much different on April 10 at the summit of the European Council. Based on this, the different representative of the 27 remaining countries of the European Union will have to state whether they agree to a potential additional delay. That's also an option that is on the table,
right,
or they would agree to a solution that has been agreed before in London.
Now, Remi, what about the people themselves? We've seen these huge protests, both pro-Brexit, anti-Brexit, but how much influence do these large-scale protests have at this point?
So clearly, you're having those several millions of people that signed this petition online to remain within the European Union, ask for a new referendum. You also have a series of different protests, especially in the northern part of the country, that ask for the decision taken during the Brexit referendum to be implemented, and say that right now we have a denial of democracy inside the UK Parliament. But in truth, I mean, all those movements are pressuring the parliamentary members to take a decision, or Theresa May potentially to step down. But they've been remarkably stubborn and not listening to any of those popular movements. Those popular movements do not have a real power. I mean, unless you would have half of the UK population walking down in the streets of London to be able to push towards either a hard Brexit or remaining inside the UK,
right.
the EU, sorry, then that just shows that the people that potentially voted in favor or against the Brexit are just marching to just reinforce the claim.
All right, thank you so much. Remi Piet there, Research Associate of the EU Centre at the University of Miami.